is achieved by using hot air or solvents, never with adhesives. There are specific sizes and shapes for completing the finishing details. For longitudinal and transversal joints, straight 40mm nozzles are the most appropriate. Make sure the nozzle is clean and that no residue is obstructing the outflow of the hot air. Regulate the temperature of the equipment to reach 550 degrees Celsius. Activate the switch and wait a few minutes until the equipment has reached the working temperature. In general, hand equipment has a 10-position regulator with a 60 degrees Celsius variation between each position. Joints. Verifying the weld. Before starting to weld, perform a trial to make sure the selected temperature is correct. This can vary depending on environmental conditions, airflow, the nozzle used, and the speed of work. Test by pulling hard on the two opposite ends. The membrane should tear, but the weld should remain well bonded. If the temperature is too high, the membrane will scorch and will not weld correctly. When pulling on the weld, we see how the membrane deteriorates. On the other hand, if the working temperature is too low, spots will remain that have not welded. When pulling on the membrane, the weld breaks apart before the membrane tears. Joints. Welding roofing membrane by hand. Once the equipment is ready, unroll the roofing membrane. Leave an overlap of at least 5 centimeters. On mechanically secured systems, the overlap should be 10 centimeters. This way, the fastened area will be completely covered. It is recommended that the membrane be secured with spot welds every 50 centimeters. Insert the nozzle between the two plies at a 45-degree angle. Move the heat welder along continuously. At the same time, press down with the roller, always moving forward to prevent wrinkles from forming. The weld is correct when a bright strip and a light whitish smoke appear along the seam joint. Once the joint is sealed, use a blunt screwdriver to check and make sure that the weld is continuous with no openings. For greater precaution and to improve the finish, we recommend going over the joint with liquid PVC. Joints. Welding with automatic equipment. To increase output efficiency on large-scale jobs, we recommend using automatic welding equipment. The procedure is basically the same as when using hand equipment, except that with the automatic equipment, the work speed must be established. Insert the nozzle under the overlap. The equipment starts operating when this movement is performed. Then weld normally, allowing the equipment to work at the programmed speed. With an air temperature of 25 degrees Celsius and using a 40mm nozzle, the recommended temperature is 560 degrees Celsius and a speed of 4.5 meters per minute. Joints. T-joints. It is advisable to first weld the transversal joints and then the longitudinal joints. When welding, take special care with the lip of the previous weld. Always round off corners to avoid weak spots in the joint. Taper the edges of the membrane. This way, the thickness of the superimposed layers will be less. 4 plies should never meet at the same point. If this happens, place the joints in such a way that they are not aligned transversely. Make sure that all the joints have been made correctly. For added precaution, seal the joint with liquid PVC. Edge flashing. Wall flashing. When meeting a wall, the waterproofing must extend 20 centimeters above the finished deck. Place a geotextile layer to protect the membrane. The membrane can also be adhered to the support structure with VINITEX bonding adhesive, especially if the area to be covered is quite high. Spot weld the top edge to a laminated termination bar. This termination bar must be previously fastened to the support structure with lag screws. Press with the roller to weld the membrane to the laminated termination bar. Make the joint with the roofing membrane, leaving at least 10 centimeters of overlap. Then weld the joint following the regular procedure. For greater precaution, apply a bead of polyurethane mastic on the top of the termination bar. Check the joints with a blunt screwdriver. Finally, apply liquid PVC along all the seams and joints. Edge flashing. Termination on the top of the wall. In the event that the vertical surface of the perimeter is low, the membrane can cover the top part of it. In this case, place a laminated coping flashing on the outer edge of the wall like a drip edge. If necessary, cut the coping flashing to the required size. Leave at least 3 millimeters between adjacent flashing strips. Secure the flashing to the structure with fasteners, leaving a maximum distance of 25 centimeters between them. Overlap the membrane onto the flashing strip. Spot weld, and then finish welding the membrane to the flashing in such a way that the fasteners are hidden. Next, weld this ply to the roofing membrane, allowing a 10 centimeter overlap. Check the weld with a blunt screwdriver. Finally, apply liquid PVC to the entire joint. Outside and inside corners. Upper outside corner. Before installing the membrane, laminated coping flashings must be installed on the outer side of the wall. Use 2 laminated coping flashings to form the angle. Make a right angle cut on one of the flashing pieces. Fit the flashings into the corner. Place the membrane on the wall. Spot weld the membrane to hold it in place. Cut off the excess portion of the fold. Round off the corners of the membrane. Fold the corner over and spot weld it. First, weld the lower part of the membrane to the flashing. Next, place the upper part of the membrane. Cut the membrane at an angle and discard the excess portion. Weld the overlap as usual. Then weld the vertical joint. Take special care with the corner area. Outside and inside corners. Lower outside corner. For application on a lower outside corner, place the membrane, shaping it to the corner. Make a few spot welds to attach the membrane to the structure. Round off the corner edges. Cut off the excess membrane. First, perform the vertical weld. Next, weld the overlap to the roofing membrane. To ensure water tightness, place a reinforcement piece along the vertex. The quickest way is to place a piece of prefabricated PVC. If this is not available, it can be made using a piece of non-reinforced membrane 1.5 millimeters thick. Cut a 12 centimeter diameter piece. Apply heat until it is malleable. Stretch it by hand until the appropriate shape is achieved. Position the piece and secure it with a spot weld on the vertex. Then weld the rest of the piece from the inside outward, making sure that no air stays trapped inside.